The city pulsed below like a living organism, millions of lights flickering against the fog. Elena Dorn stood barefoot on the edge of the rooftop, her white dress trembling in the wind. It wasn't cold, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She didn't want to die. She just wanted the noise to stop the constant ache of existing. The wind carried a voice. "Step back." She turned. A man stood behind her tall, dark coat, sweeping against the neon glow. His presence didn't belong to this world. "Go away," she said. "You don't know me." "I don't need to," he replied. "I heard you long before you came here." Elena's breath caught. "Heard me?" He stepped closer, his eyes calm and unblinking. "Your silence was loud enough to wake the dead." She laughed bitterly. "Then maybe that's why you're here." He stopped within arm's reach. "I am." Something about his voice made the air heavier, ageless, certain. He extended his hand. "You're not supposed to fall tonight." She studied him, pale skin, eyes that looked more tired than kind. "And who decides that?" He smiled faintly. "Someone who's already fallen enough for both of us." For the first time, Elena hesitated. When she finally took his hand, lightning flashed behind them, and for one impossible second, she swore she saw no reflection of him in the glass. The rooftop door creaked shut behind them, sealing the city's chaos below. Elena leaned against the railing, her pulse still wild, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. The stranger's voice broke the silence, calm, low, deliberate. "Elena Dorn." She froze. "How do you know my name?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked over the edge of the building, where the wind tugged at his coat. "Because you've been dreaming of me?" he said finally. She stared at him. "That's insane." "Maybe," he said softly, "but dreams are older than sanity." She searched his face, every line too perfect, too still. "Are you some kind of stalker?" "If I were," he said, "you would have been gone before I arrived." That quiet certainty made her chest tighten. "Then what are you?" He turned toward her. "Someone who's heard the same thought you whispered tonight 1,000 times before. Only this time, I couldn't let it finish." The wind grew colder. His eyes gray, endless, caught the city lights like mirrors that had forgotten their purpose. Elena folded her arms. "So what? You stop random strangers from jumping." "Not random," he said. "Only the ones who call without realizing it." She frowned. "I didn't call anyone." He stepped closer, the air trembling slightly. "You did, right before the wind took your breath." The realization hit her. She had whispered one word before leaning forward. "Help." He smiled, sad and knowing, and I answered. Something inside her cracked not fear, but recognition. "Who are you?" she asked. He paused, then spoke her name like a confession. "Lucien Voss, once a man, now a reminder that even monsters can listen." She laughed through her tears. "You're not real." He tilted his head. "Maybe not, but I just stopped you from dying. That's real enough." They sat on the edge of the roof, feet dangling over the neon abyss. The city looked endless from here, a river of glass and pulse. Elena tried to steady her breathing while the stranger, Lucien Voss, watched her in silence, as though memorizing the rhythm of her heartbeat. She finally broke the quiet. "You talk like you've seen everything." "I have," he said simply, "and it never gets easier." She turned toward him. "You mean life?" He hesitated. "Existence." The word hung there, strange and heavy. "What are you really?" she asked. "Because you don't move like a person who's afraid of falling." Lucien's eyes shifted to the skyline. "Afraid? No. Falling is the only thing that still reminds me I'm here." A gust of wind pulled at his coat, revealing a glint beneath his collar, the faint trace of a scar, like teeth, had once found his skin. Elena followed his gaze. "So, you stop people like me because you want to feel alive?" He gave a quiet laugh, the kind that sounded practiced. "No, I stop people like you because I remember the moment I didn't." She froze. "Didn't what?" "Didn't stop her." His tone changed low. raw. A woman stood where you stand now, different rooftop, different century, same wind. Elena studied him. She jumped? He nodded. And I spent the next 100 years wishing she hadn't. Silence settled again. The city hummed below, indifferent to their ghosts. Elena looked down at the streets far beneath her, then back at him. You think saving me will fix that? Lucien's voice softened. No, but maybe it'll mean I still remember what mercy feels like. She leaned her head against her knees. You talk like you don't want to exist. He smiled faintly. Not want, just don't know how to anymore. When she finally glanced at him, his reflection wasn't in the glass behind them, only hers, illuminated by the trembling light of the living. The rooftop lights flickered, and the air turned colder, sharp with electricity and something older. Elena rubbed her arms for warmth. You're freezing, she murmured. Lucien smiled faintly. I haven't felt the cold in 3 centuries. Her breath caught. You can't be serious. I wish I weren't. He rose slowly, his movements measured, graceful in a way that didn't belong to mortals. The city's hum seemed to dim around him, as if even the noise respected his truth. You're saying you're what? A vampire? He didn't flinch. That word was human. What I am is what's left when time forgets you. Elena laughed once, half in disbelief. You're insane. Lucien looked at her with quiet sadness. That's what I thought of her too, the first woman I couldn't save. Until the night I buried her heart in my chest so I wouldn't forget the sound it made when it stopped. Something in his tone, not theatrical, but broken, silenced her. He stepped closer, the neon light painting faint red across his face. I have spent lifetimes watching mortals end their pain by falling, and every time it feels like I'm falling with them. But you... He stopped, as if the words were heavier than he could lift. You made me want to climb back up. Elena looked away, fighting tears. I'm no savior, Lucien. I can barely save myself. He shook his head. That's exactly why you can. The wind howled, tugging at her hair, her dress. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of the edge, not because she wanted to die, but because she wasn't standing there alone anymore. Lucien's voice softened. If you jump, the city forgets you. But if you stay... She met his eyes. Then what? Then maybe I remember how to live. The night deepened, swallowing sound. From far below, sirens drifted through the air, hollow and distant, like a world that neither of them belonged to anymore. Elena sat cross-legged now, her dress tangled in the wind. You say you've lived for centuries, she murmured. Then you've seen everything. Why care about one girl on one roof? Lucien leaned against the railing, the city's glow cutting sharp lines across his face. Because eternity isn't full, he said. It's empty, and every once in a while a single heartbeat echoes loud enough to fill it again. She looked at him, unsure whether to laugh or cry. You talk like someone trying to convince himself he still has one. He smiled, small and genuine. Maybe I am. Lightning rippled across the skyline. For a second the light caught the faint veins under his skin, silver, not blue. He noticed her stare and said softly, Does it frighten you? Elena shook her head. No, it's beautiful actually, like the night lives inside you. Maybe it does, he said. And maybe that's why I can't let anyone fall into it. She frowned. You think you're saving people from me? No, he whispered, from what I've become. He turned away, voice lower. I wasn't always like this. I traded my soul to keep a dying city alive during the plague, but the cure was my curse. I stayed while everyone else turned to dust. Elena's voice trembled. So you're punishing yourself for surviving? I'm remembering, he said. Every face, every scream, every promise I failed to keep. She rose, taking a careful step toward him. Then stop punishing yourself. Start keeping one. Lucien looked at her, startled. And what promise is that? To live, she said simply, with me here, tonight. Something flickered behind his eyes, fear, wonder, something human fighting to surface. Then stay, he said quietly. If you stay, I'll tell you everything I never told another soul." And for the first time in 300 years, the immortal felt the pulse of a heartbeat that wasn't his own, and realized it was enough. They sat side by side on the ledge, the storm moving farther away, leaving behind the trembling hush that follows lightning. The city looked softer now, its lights pulsing like 1,000 slow heartbeats. Elena turned to him. "You said you'd tell me everything. Start there." Lucien hesitated. "I don't even remember the beginning anymore, just the ending." She waited. He stared down at his hands that looked too perfect, too pale to belong to anything living. "There was a plague," he began quietly. "They said it would take everyone. I was a doctor then, desperate, reckless. I made a bargain not with the devil, but with mercy itself. It promised I could save them if I gave up the right to die." He looked at her, his eyes unguarded. "The cure worked. The city lived. I didn't." Elena listened, silent. "For centuries I tried to believe it was a miracle," he said. "But immortality isn't life. It's grief on repeat. Everyone you touch fades, and you keep breathing." She wiped a tear she hadn't noticed forming. "Then why keep going?" Lucien's voice cracked not with weakness, but with weariness. "Because some part of me still remembers what it felt like to save someone. I just forgot what it's like to be saved." That hit her deeper than she expected. "You think I can save you?" He smiled faintly. "You already have. You reminded me that pain isn't proof of weakness. It's proof of still being here." She took a slow breath. "Then promise me something." "What?" "When you start to feel that emptiness again, don't go searching for the next lost soul. Just remember this night." Lucien turned his gaze toward her, the vampire who had seen the rise and fall of empires, undone by a human who refused to die. "Then stay until sunrise," he whispered. "I will," she said, "but you'll have to tell me one more thing." He leaned closer, a question in his eyes. "Does it hurt?" she asked softly. "To feel alive again?" His answer came like breath over glass. "More than dying ever did." The horizon began to pale, a slow bleed of gray into blue. Lucien stood near the edge, watching dawn crawl toward the city, his expression unreadable. Elena wrapped her arms around herself, studying him in the dim light. "You're scared of it, aren't you?" she asked. He didn't look away from the sky. "The sun?" He smiled faintly. "It's not fear. It's memory. I remember what it felt like before it started to burn. Then why not hide? I've been hiding for centuries." He turned toward her, the faintest shimmer in his eyes. "You made me want to see it again." The first streak of gold touched the glass towers in the distance. Lucien's breath caught. A ripple of pain flickered across his face. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "And cruel." Elena stepped forward. "Then let it be both. Maybe that's what life is, something that hurts and heals at the same time." He laughed softly. "You speak like someone who's lived longer than me." "Maybe I just lost faster," she said. He reached for her hand, his skin cold but trembling slightly now, as though something beneath it had remembered warmth. "You don't understand what you've done," he murmured. "You've changed the ending." "The ending?" "I was supposed to disappear by sunrise. That's how the bargain worked every century. The night I save another, I vanish with the dawn. I thought that was mercy. But now—" He stopped, voice breaking. "Now I don't want to go." Elena's eyes filled. "Then don't." Lucien smiled, the faint trace of a tear catching light that shouldn't have touched him. "You make it sound so simple." "It is," she said, stepping closer. "Stay, even if it hurts. Stay and learn what it means to live again." He looked at her as if the words themselves might keep him anchored. The sun rose higher, brushing against his face like fire and forgiveness. For the first time in centuries, Lucien Voss didn't turn away. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Then let this be my first sunrise, not my last." The light grew stronger, creeping across the rooftop like a slow tide. Lucien's coat fluttered in the morning breeze. Wisps of smoke rose faintly from the edge of his sleeve. He didn't move. "Lucien!" Elena reached for him, panic breaking through her voice. He smiled without opening his eyes. "It's all right. I've waited too long to feel something real." "Real?" She grabbed his arm. His skin was hot to the touch, the veins beneath glowing faintly like embers. "You'll burn." "I already am," he whispered. "Just not the way you think." The sun climbed higher, and the world around them sharpened every sound, every shadow suddenly too alive. Elena tried to pull him back toward the shade of the stairwell, but he resisted. "Don't make me hide again," he said. "I've hidden from the light, from people, from pain, from love. You made me remember all of it in one night." She shook her head, tears blurring her vision. "Then remember it here, with me, but not like this." He looked down at her hands gripping his sleeve. "You asked me if it hurts to feel alive again. Now you know the answer." She refused to let go. "If you vanish, it won't mean you lived. It'll mean you ran from it again." Those words cut deeper than sunlight. His resolve faltered. For the first time, Lucien stepped back into the shadow beside her. The smoke vanished. Elena pressed a trembling hand against his chest. "Do you feel that?" A heartbeat faint, uneven, answered her touch. Lucien stared down at her, disbelief softening his face. "It's mine," he breathed. "Then you're still here," she said through tears. "Don't waste it." He smiled, not the weary smile of centuries, but something new, fragile, human. "I thought I stopped you from falling," he murmured, "but it seems you're the one who caught me." Below them, the city awakened traffic, voices, life resuming, unaware that on one forgotten rooftop, an immortal had just learned what dawn truly meant. By mid-morning, the city had come fully alive. Horns, sirens, the smell of rain on concrete. Elena and Lucien sat against the rooftop wall, the sun resting gently on the edge of the parapet, daring him to stay. He looked different now. His skin no longer held the perfect, polished stillness of immortality. There was color in it, faint, human, imperfect. The faint pulse beneath his jaw was real. Elena watched him quietly. "You're not fading," she said. He smiled. "No. For the first time, I think I'm learning how to stay." "What changed?" "You did," he said simply. "You didn't beg to be saved. You demanded to live. I'd forgotten what that sounded like." She gave a small laugh, though her voice shook. "You're saying my breakdown turned you mortal?" Lucien turned toward her. "No, your choice did." For a moment, silence stretched between them, warm and peaceful. He studied her face, the exhaustion, the mascara smudged beneath her eyes, the strength still there despite it all. "You remind me of light," he said softly. "Not because you're bright, but because you reach everything that tries to hide." Elena blinked hard, caught off guard by the gentleness in his voice. "And you remind me of shadow," she replied. "Not because you're dark, but because you made me see what light was for." He laughed, low and human, the sound surprising even him. "That might be the first time anyone ever called me necessary." "You were," she said, "just not for the reason you thought." The breeze lifted a strand of her hair across his hand, and instinctively he caught at a gesture so small, yet infinite. Lucien whispered, "You stopped me from vanishing, Elena Dorn." She smiled faintly. "Then we're even." He leaned his head back against the wall, closing his eyes. For the first time in centuries, the world didn't spin beneath him. It simply was. Down below, the city carried on, unaware that somewhere above it, death and life had called a truce, if only for one quiet morning. Weeks later, the rooftop had changed. The caution tape was gone, the steel railing repaired, and new flowers grew in planters along the ledge, small, stubborn things that refused to die even in the city's exhaust. Elena Dorn stood there again, this time not to fall but to breathe. The sky stretched pale and clean above her. In her hand, a single note written in a hand too elegant for this century. "If you ever forget what you stopped me from becoming, look for the place where night begins to blush. L." She smiled, reading it for the 100th time. He was gone now, not vanished like before, not turned to dust, but gone in the way someone leaves when they finally belong to the world again. Every sunrise since that night had been different, warmer, louder. The city no longer felt like a threat, it felt alive, and somehow she did too. Behind her, a man's voice spoke, low and familiar. "You always come back here." She didn't turn immediately. "Because it's where I stopped ending," she said softly. When she finally looked, Lucien Voss was there, not pale, not ghost-like. He looked human. The faint glow in his eyes had dimmed to something gentler, mortal. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, smiling through her tears. "I promised I'd stay," he said, "even if it hurt." He stepped closer. The morning wind tangled her hair. His hand brushed it aside. "You saved me that night," he said. "Not from death, from forever." Elena's voice trembled. "And you saved me from falling." Lucien smiled. "No, you never fell. You just forgot you had wings." They stood in silence as the sun rose, no burning, no smoke, only warmth. The light caught the edge of the building, wrapping them in gold. The city moved beneath their feet, alive, imperfect, unending, and, for the first time, neither of them looked down. Because the fall had already happened. And somehow, both had survived it.